My name is Lori Saldaña. I was in the State Assembly for 6 years. I'm a native San Diegan, and I joined in this election for mayor before there really was an election. I decided in January that San Diegans deserve a choice for mayor. And I'm very grateful that Ed Harris has agreed with that sentiment and has also joined in this. Unfortunately, there's one person who doesn't seem to think that San Diego deserves an election and a campaign and a discussion of ideas, and that is the current mayor. And so I'm nice to see that there's an empty suit here to represent the fact that he is not joining us. But I have tried to set up debates and he has declined. And so we're just going to come out here and do the best we can answering your questions, which are very important to any discussion. I'm really curious to hear what's on your mind as part of this evening's discussion. I grew up in San Diego. I'm a native San Diegan. I've seen a lot of changes in this community. And things concern me greatly in recent months when I see such increased development, and yet, I shouldn't even call it development, it's just growth, which is the mindset of a cancer cell. We have a mayor who is more concerned about public relations than he is about substance. We have a mayor who is putting his face on the front page of the city website, where other cities and mayors are putting the results of comprehensive studies on homelessness and affordability and how to deal with safety issues in their cities like Seattle and Los Angeles and San Jose. So I spent an hour with the Union Tribune editorial board yesterday going over many of these things. I think they deserve discussion, they deserve analysis, and until this mayor decides to join us at debates and forums like this, people will be denied an opportunity to have that discussion. So thank you for being part of it, and I look forward to hearing your questions tonight.
My name is Ed Harris. I actually grew up in Orange County, and I was in the Marine Corps. And I was running on the beach 26 years ago, and I saw a sign on the trash can for lifeguards. And I tried out, and I became a city lifeguard. I've been in that profession for 26 years. I'm a sergeant. Public safety is something that came easy for me, especially out of the Marine Corps. And about a year and a half ago, I was representing the lifeguards through their own association. We went into that, and I brought them into that association because I couldn't get enough trucks, I couldn't get enough boats, and I couldn't get enough lifeguards to ensure that everybody who came to the beach went home safely. And I had 7 years of working with Mayor Faulkner, then Council Member Faulkner, who repeatedly told me, "We support you, I support you, I support you," but never got anything done. The fact is I had to go to David Alvarez at the time in order to have a strong voice on City Council to get the votes I needed to move things forward. I never thought I'd be in politics. I'm not a politician. I was appointed for 9 months to the City Council to fill in when Kevin became the mayor. During that time, I voted and supported minimum wage, and I was the deciding vote that overrode his veto of minimum wage. I stand for working class people. It's the same as when I was in the Marine Corps. What I was taught is that you take care of the people that are under you. I do that in the lifeguard service. I do that in life. I have a wife, Kate, here, and I have two children. We live in Point Loma. We have a home there. San Diego's our home. We care about it. And Lori's right. We certainly both felt the same way, that we need to have a conversation, and San Diego's need a choice. For Kevin to come out and say, "I stand on my record, I stand on my record," if you're not here to defend your record, it's not good. And if you refuse in your home district of the beaches like Point Loma and La Jolla and Pacific Beach to come into forums where they know you the most, you're not having a good record. Thank you.
Thank you. What would be your priorities for your first 100 days as mayor?
In the first 100 days, I would look at the climate action plan implementation, find out where it's been stalled out, and make sure that we are making progress to achieve the goals that were agreed to, which so far have not been achieved. Climate action, meeting that very serious necessity of will set the tone for how we grow and develop the city in the future when it comes to resource management, water, growth, construction, where to build. I would also deal with a similar assessment of homelessness, why so many people are living on the streets of San Diego. And I would model it on what they've done in Los Angeles and what they're doing in other cities with comprehensive approach, community meetings, identify what is leading to this, if it's lack of affordable housing, if it's lack of counseling, and make sure that we address those two things, climate change and affordable housing and homelessness.
In the first 100 days, the top priority for me would be your top priority. And we know from the city surveys that year after year, public safety is the most important to the citizens. We know that Kevin stated that public safety was his top priority when he ran for office. The police department is melting down. 911 calls are being put on hold. We know this. You don't have enough police officers. When Kevin took office, we were losing police officers 10 per month. That's grown by 40%. As a lifeguard, we have people from the beach communities calling, asking for a lifeguard response because they are on hold with 911. Imagine the person you love the most in this world, and they're had an accident, and you're on hold with 911, and that's the only thing that's going to save their life. So think of that, the person that you love the most. That has to get solved. It's solvable, and that would be something I would solve and be moving forward with immediately in the city of San Diego in the first 100 days.
What is your position on short-term vacation rentals?
We have policies in place right now, and it's a city policy, that if Mayor Faulkner was following that policy, the problem would be solved. Short-term vacation rentals are taking 6,000 housing units out of our inventory that would help with the housing crisis. They're also turning residents into mini hotels, disturbing neighborhoods, and he can simply follow the existing policy. We don't need to go down and reinvent the wheel. We need to enforce what's on the books today so that your neighbor is your neighbor. The existing policy allows for a homeowner to go on vacation and rent that house out for a month or 2 weeks and come back and be a neighbor. It's quite simple. Mayor, do your job, enforce the policies that are on the books now, and quit catering to the people that are funding your campaign.
Affordable housing crisis in San Diego means that we have to look very carefully at how many houses are being taken out of circulation for full-time rent and going into our hospitality and service industry under the books or off the books. This is a gray market, basically. It is something that doesn't pay into the taxes of the city of San Diego. It's not just taking away housing, it's taking away or chopping into our tax base of economic growth that would be possible, and it's making it less likely for other people to have affordable housing in their neighborhoods, and is disrupting communities by having a commercial operation in what should be a residential area. We only have 2 inspectors that are actually going out and looking at this problem. So, as Ed has said, and I agree, as former chair of Housing and Community Development in Sacramento, if we don't enforce existing regulations, it doesn't make any sense to enact new ones. Let's enforce the ones we have and make sure that housing is for residents, not for a business-making purpose. They're 2 very distinct operations.
The county is sitting on approximately $100 million in mental health service dollars. How will you partner with the county to direct these dollars to help solve homelessness?
I believe you're referring to the Prop 63 funds. That was a ballot measure that taxes people who earn over $1 million at a slightly higher rate, and it's more than $100 million. It's closer to $175 million that could go to mental illness services. I would immediately go to the county and say, how many people in this region have received services based on this funding? And start doing an assessment of what they have provided and then compare that with what needs to be provided. I teach near the county's Health and Human Services office. My campaign office is just a few blocks away. I see the effects of not treating people with mental illness every day when I drive to and from my classes. 80% of police-involved shootings involve people with mental illness or who are on drugs and alcohol. 80% of those shootings. We could immediately have an impact on public safety if we did a better job of spending this money to treat people who have mental illness with those funds.
The mental health dollars are one piece of the homeless puzzle that we need to solve. And Lori's right. We cannot have people that aren't being treated because it has a dramatic effect on our public safety. It has a dramatic effect on our system as a whole. When you look at homelessness, this is one big piece of that puzzle. And so those from the county, we need to work with them, but we need to ensure as a strong mayor that we are putting pressure on all entities to give us all the dollars from the state, from the feds, that we deserve to deal with that piece of the puzzle. We have 1,300, 1,400 veterans that are homeless. We need to go after those federal dollars. We have traveling homeless at the beach. We have a wide degree, and no one solution to the homeless is going to fix the problem. We have to attack it from every angle that we have, and we have to go after every dollar, and that takes a strong mayor to do that, and to go in and work with people to get it done. And one of the things I really tried to get through, as you know, was a community garden in Pacific Beach. And the tenants there were faced with the fact that they had to pay $12,000, $16,000 environmental impact and other fees in order to just create a community garden. We see that with sidewalks and other things that volunteers want to create in their community, but yet this mayor chooses to give $2 million to the chargers and not charge them anything for their environmental impact reports. Why would we do that? Why are we double charging residents who already pay their taxes and want to do something good within the community, and we turn around and we make them pay their share, as they say, but we give money to billionaires? It's corporate welfare.
Community gardens are an absolute benefit. They help us meet our climate action plan goals. There are many community gardens near my home in Claremont that are sponsored by churches. People use them not only for social reasons, but for fresh fruits and vegetables. I'm a huge supporter of community gardens for a lot of benefits, not only personal and social, but obviously the fresh food, and that helping us meet our climate action plan goals. And personally, I'm a multi-generational gardener that composts and does rainwater harvesting and all that good stuff. So I would love to see more community gardens established throughout San Diego.
Candidates for public office in San Diego only appear on the general election ballot if no one candidate receives more than 50% of the vote in the primary. Do you support or oppose this policy?
I oppose anything that discourages voter participation, and I believe that, or let me put it this way, that I oppose a system that discourages voter turnout, which this current system in effect does. Because people don't realize that their vote is so important in the primary. And when they find out that somebody won outright in June, then they don't bother showing up and voting in November. So it's really absurd that we see from studies that in certain populations, a very small percentage bother voting in June, especially students. Why? Because they've just left school, they've graduated, they're out for the summer. They're not thinking of voting in June. They think in November I'll have the real chance to vote. So young voters are disproportionately disenfranchised by this current system. And as a teacher at the community college, I think we need to encourage more young voters because it's their future that many of us are taking actions on now. So I oppose the 50+1. I think it's frankly anti-democratic.
This is something that I've been working on for at least 4 months with several groups as an active participant to try and change this for the exact reasons as Ms. Saldaña has laid out. We should be making decisions when we have the highest turnout. Simple as that. Not just for elections, but for propositions. There's a lot of bad decisions that get made from special elections and from June primaries. And so this is why this is so important to have forums like this, and why I want to thank you for that. We need people to come out and vote in June. We need to ensure that this mayor doesn't move and get that 51% so that we can have a voice and we can continue this conversation until November, and we can force him to come to debates when one of us ascends to that November general election. Then the decision for San Diego and the good of San Diego will be made by the broader population, and Kevin will have to be held accountable for his exact record. We encourage you to go to where'skevin.org, and it'll show you where he's absent, just like he is absent today.
How will you improve relations with the country of Mexico and its citizens across the border from us?
You know, this question was asked at a debate, and Kevin said that he was building bridges. And one thing is, the narrative coming out of the Republican Party is clear. Kevin backed a presidential candidate that wants to build more walls. Kevin is not building bridges, he's building walls. He's building economic walls. When he vetoed minimum wage that we passed when I was on the city council, he built an economic wall that kept people from being able to feed their families, kept them from being able to take part in most of the things that we take part in our community. You can't veto minimum wage and then turn around and say you want to raise the middle class and you support people. I was the deciding vote that overrode the mayor's veto when I was on city council. And that's the best thing that you can do to raise all people who are working on both sides of the border, who come here to work, that improve transit and keep up the dialogue. But mostly leadership and decision making.
I grew up here with a family who has, I have cousins in Baja California, I have family throughout Mexico, and I've already talked with people in Tijuana about setting up an office there when I become mayor, because I think it's good to plan ahead. I really do believe that we are a huge binational region here, and that diversity is our strength in this region. We have the most educated people that are Spanish speakers in anywhere from Mexico. If you were to draw a circle between Ensenada and Los Angeles, we have more Mexico-educated PhDs than in all of Mexico within that 200 miles. We are strong because of our relationship with Mexico, and I will work to make it even stronger with our technology, with our cross-border services. And having been a Clinton appointee on a cross-border environmental commission, I will continue to work at the federal level to make sure we have the funding we need for good, efficient cross-border passages, both north and south.
San Diego's median income is $56,000. Should the pay for firefighters be twice that, 3 times that, or the same?
I think I know who asked this question. Paying public employees more money to do difficult jobs is not the answer to keeping them doing those difficult jobs. We only have to look at, and I'm looking at the firefighters, I'm looking at our police officers and paramedics. I think that we need to do a study of what other comparable cities are using for compensation of people in those difficult professions as a standard baseline, but we can't use that as a means to attract and retain people. It's a much more complicated system than that. So if the average salary of San Diegans is $56,000, which makes it very difficult for people to afford homes, I think what we need to look at is how do we raise the salaries of many of these other people in San Diego that are living on relatively little in such a high-cost city. But I would look at other cities for some ways to not only establish a good baseline of salary, but how to retain and attract good qualified people in those difficult jobs.
You know, we see a lot of attacking of city employees, and when you look at firefighter salary, you have to take out overtime. And so we have a system that, because they're unwilling to hire and they're unwilling to train, they revert back to what's called mandatory overtime. And so there's base salary, and then you have the actual salary because they're working the hours. And it's become an inefficient system that needs to be looked at thoroughly. But we also have to compete. And so right now we're training firefighters just as we are police officers. And it costs us $100,000 to train a police officer, close to that for a firefighter. And as soon as they get the experience, they're going to another city. So there is a supply and demand issue that has to be considered here. And you have to pay a competitive wage, and you have to ensure that you're training enough people and retaining them. And so it is part of a much bigger system.
What do you intend to do to help strengthen local small businesses so they can employ more people?
I think one of the biggest mistakes for small business is to think that they're being taxed more because of the left. What we have to do is we have to look at the assets that San Diego has, and we have to get fair market value for them. We are not doing that on many things. One of the deals that I blocked was Belmont Park, which was a $75 million giveaway. That's one of hundreds of deals the city of San Diego does. We have millions of dollars that are being given through special deals that are going out of the economy. We still have to afford the things that we want, and so small business is getting taxed, their fees are being raised, and we are making it difficult to do business here. So we have to go in first and make the books open, make it transparent, and have outside auditors look at the money that comes in, and everybody wants to know where their tax dollars come in. They need an outside audit, put it on the table where everybody can see it, and then see what kind of taxes we need to pay.
Thank you, Ms. Saldaña.
Our hospitality and tourism industry actually depresses wages. And the net effect, because these tend to be low-wage occupations, people come here to take those jobs often on a temporary basis. And so the turnover, anybody who looks at the monthly workforce reports, the turnover in hospitality and tourism is massive. What that means is we have a lot of people working at low wages, and our small business owners are the ones who are suffering because they don't get the benefit of people living or working and earning a living wage, and they don't have business people, or they don't have people going and doing business with them. I think we really need to look at the hotels, at the restaurants, at the tourism industry and say, until you are willing to start paying people more of a living wage, you are depressing other businesses in our community. And so even as we train people with good skills, as I do as a workforce educator, they are not going to be compensated fairly. So we need to vote to raise the minimum wage, and we need to encourage small businesses to know that's a good thing for them when more people have disposable income to spend at their businesses.
Can tourism be compatible with climate change? How can you have 19 million visitors a year?
Well, this came up many years ago. A friend was writing about drought and water and how can people come from other places and they don't appreciate we live in such an arid climate. It's not, we're in a Mediterranean climate. It might be changing into something very different with climate change, we'll see. So we need to educate people, and I think the tourism industry needs to be part of that you don't go in and take a long, luxurious shower. We've done a good job of making our side of the border green and lush and tropical looking, but all you have to do is take somebody down to the border fence and look across at Tijuana and say, this is the climate that we live in. It is not a lush tropical area. So tourism is compatible, but I would love to see more of the landscaping, more of the hotels, getting away from that tropical feel and doing more of a Mediterranean style design, and make people understand that conserving water in this region is absolutely essential, and that visitors need to be as responsible for doing that as those of us who live here year-round.
They're absolutely compatible. Tourism, you have to remember, is the third economic stool of San Diego's economy. It is incredibly important, and it's something that we have to be very careful with not upsetting. So we have to continue to develop tourism in San Diego. We need to develop the green, or the blue economy, and we need to bring San Diegans together to not only embrace that, but help us to encourage to make it thrive. As we move forward with the Climate Action Plan and we start developing better transit, that will help our tourism. When we start developing better models to show off San Diego, there's a lot of niches for small business. And so you have to remember always that is the third leg of our economic stool. Tourism is very important, and we can do that with the Climate Action Plan, and both of them can be a strength to our community and our economy.
What is your position on San Diego's marijuana laws?
You know, the state is on its way to legalizing marijuana. What was unfortunate when I was on the city council is that there was a lot of illegal vending going on, but there's absolutely no enforcement coming out of the city attorney's office, coming out of the city mayor's office, and so my district was hit the most. Pacific Beach had every week a new marijuana dispensary opening up with no regulation. And so while we support the industry and medical marijuana, there has to be some oversight. But they tried to draft some rules, and I simply looked at them and said, why are we drafting rules that there's nobody to enforce? And so I couldn't support it at that time. There are true patients that actually absolutely need the oils and need the drug itself for medicine, and others need it for other reasons. But it's an industry that's going to keep going, and we need to support it, but it needs to be some regulation.
I worked on this as an assembly member. I was in Tijuana 3 weeks ago speaking with activists there because personal use of marijuana is now legal in Mexico, and the president of Mexico is increasing the amount legal to have for personal use. It is coming to San Diego, and it will be a net benefit. We can grow anything in San Diego County. We can grow it at a very high standard. We are the largest organic, the county with the most organic small farms of anywhere in the country. So I really believe it will be a net benefit both for those who produce it and those who are cultivating it and then making it available for people once it's legalized. I think it will be a real boom for our economy, and we need to start planning now, just as with Colorado and Washington, to make full economic advantage of that. It is a proven medicinal use for epilepsy, for PTSD, and so I'm a strong proponent of it, and I think we need to get started now. When Kevin was asked about this in our Telemundo forum, his first response was, "I will work with the police," and I had to remind him, "Kevin, it's legal. Leave the police out of it. We're good."
Can you give us some distinct ways a Democratic or an independent mayor would be distinguishable from a Republican mayor?
I'm trying to think where to start. Well, I'm an independent in this race, and I don't know that it's so much a matter of partisanship as it's just personal values and principles. And one reason I'm running as an independent is I really would like to take the partisanship out of the decision-making process when I serve as mayor. I think we live in a city that is strongly based, as Ed was saying, we have military, we have tourism, we have education. Those are things that are not partisan, and to support those industries and to move people forward to be educated, to attract people who are tourists from all over the world to come here and be comfortable. We just need to be conscious of putting our best face forward as a city with so much at stake and on the world stage. And sadly, I think that a conservative approach is more law enforcement, and maybe a more progressive approach is how we express ourselves in different ways and not so much law enforcement.
I'm definitely the Democrat in the race, and Kevin is the Republican in the race. And so, but less about how I would differentiate between the parties. I can tell you how I'll differentiate between Kevin. I will get things done. I will move the agenda forward, and I will make decisions, something that Kevin has yet to be able to do. I met with the UT board the other day, and they asked me a question. I returned the question to them, and I said, well, tell me what he has done. And all four of them were stumped by that. That shouldn't be a hard question to answer after being in office in the city of San Diego for 10 years. We should know exactly what you've done, and you should be able to stand on your record. You should be able to show up in any forum and take a question from anybody in the audience and defend what decisions you made or didn't make and what you moved forward or didn't move forward. Kevin was absent on the Sandag vote and absent on that committee, a vitally important piece of San Diego's infrastructure, and he can't bother to go.
The Sandag Transportation Plan for San Diego relies heavily on old technologies that will not meet the goals of the Climate Action Plan. What will you do to help foster transportation innovation here in San Diego?
Kevin taking credit for the Climate Action Plan is like holding somebody else's fish and taking a picture of it and taking credit for catching it. This is what we get from Kevin a lot. The photo op, the taking credit, the look what we've done, we've worked together, incremental progress, but no real solutions, okay? As soon as he passed the Climate Action Plan, he failed to show up at Sandag and make the votes we needed to start moving that plan forward. So we're already behind, which puts the city at risk of litigation. He should have showed up at Sandag. He should have used what we call a weighted vote, in which you can use it, and if you use it sparingly on really important things, you can develop coalition and you can move things forward. The fact that San Diego is having the same weight on that board as these smaller cities and getting the same results doesn't make sense. We need to use a weighted vote, and I certainly would have used it on that to move our transit forward and move the Climate Action Plan forward.
So Ed mentioned that the mayor ducked that vote. He did not show up at the Sandag meeting, and I think that that is one of the biggest problems that we have, a lack of leadership. We don't have somebody who is leading on these issues in the mayor's office. And as I served in the assembly, I worked on bonds, I worked on getting funding out for transportation projects around the state. Arnold Schwarzenegger signed many of those bills because he recognized it put people to work. So we need to look at getting people out of their cars. Sandag is a very large agency. It's hard to get them to change directions, but we need to use state funds and also look at what people need here in San Diego, which is frankly a more efficient transit system. not only for the climate action plan goals, but for the costs. It's expensive to own a car, it's expensive to operate a car. In a high-cost city, we need to give people a less expensive option. And I'm sorry we're in this format because it's really worthy of a much longer discussion of why people don't support transit, but I'll just leave it at that. I'd work to get more state money to give more options to people.
How did your previous political experience affect your view of the mayor's office?
Well, I had an opportunity, I was elected around the time we had Dick Murphy in office, and then he resigned shortly after that. I didn't get a chance to work with him too much. Then I saw Jerry Sanders in office, and I saw him change really from somebody who was very open and willing to work on issues and reach across the aisle to somebody who increasingly shut down because of who surrounded him. And what I learned from that, so Jerry Sanders is very open and happy to see me initially, and then as his handlers in the office, who are not term limited, that are there for decades, shut him down. I realized it's not the quality of the person who goes to that office so much as who they surround themselves with. And I saw that in Sacramento as well. So I'll want to make sure that when I serve in the mayor's office, I surround myself with people who are committed to the same things that I am and that are open to new ideas, that are transparent, that work with the community, that are not so isolated that they bring forward policies such as we see now when they're putting these sharp rocks down on the sidewalks to deal with homelessness. That kind of a decision doesn't come from somebody who's in touch with their community.
I had the pleasure of being a council member for 9 months in the Beach District in Lower Claremont. And we focused on community issues. And when we came into office, we said, look, what we're going to focus on is getting things done in the community. That is what we're supposed to be here. Politicians have lost the fact that they work for the public. And when you have politicians that are using that office, as Kevin is, to go somewhere else, and that their entire time in office is used to set up the next run and to raise money for the next run, we've lost the focus. And so we have to go back to the public and we have to say, look, the only reason why I sit in this chair is to ensure that the policeman and the person who empties your garbage and the roads, I'm only here to ensure that I get that done for those of you that put me in office. That is the only reason politicians exist. If they're not doing that, then we do need to reduce government. We need to reduce the bureaucracy, and we need to move them out.
The rocks under the freeway are used to keep the homeless from sleeping there. Who do you think is responsible for ordering such a thing done, and what could be done about it?
There's a lot of things we've done. Like I said, we have to really look at the homelessness from a lot of different angles. There's websites that are showing that San Diego is the best place to be homeless in the United States. If we were only dealing with the homeless that are homegrown here, we could handle that. But San Diego cannot handle this influx of homelessness. The veteran homeless, they're saying, is rising by 100 vets a month because of what is out there right now. And so we need to really work with the federal government, we need to work with the state government, and we need to start getting the funds that we need to deal with this. And other states are going to have to start, if we're going to bear the burden for most of the country, we're going to need to get more federal dollars. There's plenty of things you can do, but first of all, this mayor took the homeless, or took the veteran that was in charge of veteran services and removed him and put somebody there that's not a veteran. We could have been using that to get veterans off the street by giving them jobs. We have over 200 vacancies just in the police department. Create jobs first and get people off the street.
This is actually the first time I think I have to disagree with Ed. We don't have more homelessness because people are coming here magically from other places. We have more homelessness because we have low wages and high housing costs in the city, and this mayor has done nothing to help with either of those things. We have people that are increasingly living on the edge, working more and more hours for less and less real money as inflation eats up their salaries. They are homegrown people. They are our brothers, they are our family members, they are our friends and neighbors who for whatever reason have fallen on hard times. And so it's not an imported problem. And we need to have local solutions to deal with that, whether it is, again, treatment for mental health or alcohol and drug addiction, increased access to free education. There are so many things that could be done that this mayor refuses to even acknowledge as a possible solution, and instead he's dealing with treating symptoms. It's like putting a Band-Aid on a bullet wound, and that's what those rocks under the freeway represent. And I want to know who authorized it and who's paying for it and what analysis was done before they were put in place.
Bernie Sanders has resonated among the progressive and young people. What are his ideas that you believe should be implemented in San Diego?
So I've taught with the San Diego Community College District for over 30 years, and we have just implemented free education for community colleges on a trial basis, starting with 200 students, including about 25 from my technical vocational programs. And we can phase that in. When Bernie Sanders talks about free college education, everybody thinks it's like flipping a switch and you're going to have it tomorrow. No, we're going to phase it in and implement it and find funding and ways to provide that over time. I believe it's possible, and not only possible, I believe it's necessary, because every other major country in this world provides education to their citizens at free or little charge because they understand the power of investment in education in young people's lives, and to leave them debt-free when they graduate so they can fully participate in our economy. They can start a business, they can buy a home or rent a home. They're not in debt from day one. So Mexico City, the UNAM in Mexico City, you know what they charge for tuition? 5 cents. The only thing you pay for is books and other things. If they can do it in Mexico, we can do it in this country.
Do a Google search and you will see a list of an unbelievable amount of less well-to-do countries that are able to provide education for their citizens. So you have to, just like we have to look at the city of where our assets are coming and where they're going and how they're being spent, I think Bernie's trying to do that on a larger front. For us here in San Diego, we have to look at our assets. I'm a firm believer that trying to fix Washington is a monumental task, and it's something that I applaud him for going after. But remember that the people in Washington were your mayors and your council members and your governors before they went to Washington. Their disappointments can be stopped here. And so if we fix our backyard by stop sending these politicians that are using our money unwisely, that are just looking to move forward, and we stop this career path for politicians that is on the back of the middle class, then we'll start fixing Washington at the same time. But I think it's fixable to do your backyard. And you start here by stopping Kevin Faulconer.
What is your position regarding the Chargers and the Convention Center combination?
So I back the Citizens Plan. The reason why I back the Citizens Plan is it's a path that enables the Chargers to build a stadium, but they have to pay their share. The Convention Center is absolutely vital to our economy. Kevin said he would put it on the ballot 3 months ago in his State of the District, and then he pulled it off. Okay? We run the risk of losing Comic-Con. We run the risk of losing lots of jobs. So it can absolutely happen. Under the Citizens Plan, it turns Qualcomm into a facility that San Diego State can use, a park, transit options that we can do in that valley. So I support moving forward with the convention, or with the plan, the Citizens Plan, so it creates a path, but it absolutely ensures that the Chargers, a billionaire corporation, have to pay their own share. If they don't want to pay their own share, I can't support that. And it must be clear that the Chargers also supported the Citizens Plan before they floated this new initiative.
I've also gone on record supporting the Citizens Initiative. I'm opposed to private funding for these, I'm opposed to public funding for these private stadiums, ballparks, whatever it is we're building. Look at the mess it created with Petco. But I'm not opposed to public-private partnerships. And that's increasingly being used around the country and around the world to take some of this or to share some of this investment. And I think that it managed well, it can be done, and it needs to be done, because the whole idea of starve the beast and cut off tax revenues to municipalities on up to the federal government, unfortunately, is working. And we don't have the capital at a government level, at a public level, to invest in big projects right now. So we need to have these partnerships. I would like to see Mission Valley protected. I would like to see the Aztecs play their games there and have it be a site for research and academic excellence for USD, UCSD, or community colleges, and San Diego State, not a bunch of condos for the mayor's development fund.
The 50-year franchise agreement for use of the public right-of-way by SDG&E expires in 2020. What will you as mayor require of SDG&E to renew that franchise? Would you require support for a community choice aggregation energy district, and what is that?
The community choice, yes, I absolutely support community choice aggregation. I also support undergrounding and getting the transmission lines down below the ground with the other infrastructure where it really belongs. Community choice, for those who aren't familiar with it, is a system that was set up by the state to help meet our greenhouse gas reduction goals. And so currently there's only 2 systems in place, maybe 3 around California, where you have locally generated energy that people can invest in and pay, as opposed to a big private industry like SDG&E. And I absolutely support that. I think it makes sense for local energy security. So when somebody makes a mistake, as they did in September 2011, and somebody blew a switch somewhere and turned off the lights for 1 million plus people, we have local energy to back us up. So it's not only good for local energy security, it's usually less expensive. You're not reliant on a grid that could burn down in a wildfire, as what nearly happened in 2007. So I absolutely support that, and I would require SDG&E to help partner with that going forward.
I wrote a resolution blocking SDGE who wanted to stop CCAs here in San Diego. When we passed them, they were strong and they were going to allow for independence. SDGE went to Sacramento to try and block that. I was the only one that would carry that against SDGE on the council to block their ability to do that in Sacramento. I have solar on my house. We should have solar on every city building. We should be providing tax credits for our residents to have solar. But we should be looking broader. We should be partnering with Tesla. We should be looking to the future. And at one point, we likely wouldn't need a grid if we look to the future and we plan for the future and we really try to get outside the box thinking. SDGs has served its purpose and they'll always serve a purpose, but we need to look outside of that and we need to move forward. Force them to start partnering with us when they underground electrical lines. At the same time, we should be replacing our pipes, our sewer systems. Everything should be done at once so we're not digging up roads 3 or 4 times.
San Diego once led the USA in officer-related shootings. The Citizens Review Board has no subpoena power and needs to be replaced by a community review board. Communities of color do not have faith in the San Diego Police Department or transparent investigations. So do you agree with that analysis, and what would you do?
In San Diego, it's very dangerous to be a police officer here. My brother's been a Los Angeles police officer for 30 years. My mother was a dispatcher for the police department for 30 years. It is a dangerous job, and it's a job that is increasingly difficult for them to do. What we need to do is we need to go in and rebuild the police department. We need to get them back into community policing so that they are of the community and from the community, so that there's trust on both sides. What is wrong right now with the police department is we're hiring anybody who is minimally qualified. We should always be picking the best. We should have a competitive compensation package. We should have competitive, enough people to do the job so that they want to stay here, but so that we get not the only ones qualified, but the best officers that you can get. When it comes to people carrying guns and having the right under civil liberties, you want to ensure that you have the best. And that's a start.
I worked with law enforcement on legislation in Sacramento. I authored the ban on open carry that was actually signed by Governor Brown the year after I left, but it was the bill that I carried in my last term in office. So I understand that there's a lot of dangers to being an officer on the street and why training is so important, and that's one of the problems we face is lack of well-trained training officers within the department. And I've spoken to cadets that are applying to the police academy because they come through my classroom for the final step of applying, which they need keyboarding skills. And so I have some insights into that. I can't get into it now with so little time, but let me just say that the CRB does need to be reformed. We need subpoena power and independent investigators on that. We need a the officer body-worn camera policy, which the city attorney has said needs to come from the mayor's office. We need to devise that. And we also need those 2,800 rape kits that are sitting in evidence lockers and have not been tested for over 10 years to be cleared and solve a lot of crimes that are sitting on the books for more than 10 years.
What are your thoughts on public employee pensions?
I think when well managed, that they can be a net benefit to attract and retain skilled workers, which we need in government. The City of San Diego employees currently are under a mishmash of 10 different pension plans. We have pension plans that are different for police officers, that are different from municipal employees, that are different from the people who pick up our trash, that are different from the city attorneys. And that adds costs. Any small business, you tell them you have to come up with a separate compensation plan for each department, and they will tell you that's crazy. And it is crazy what's happened right now. I think that properly managed pension programs do a good job of attracting and retaining a skilled workforce, especially when we don't pay them Social Security. Because right now people are leaving city employment and going to the county and going to the school districts and going elsewhere to get a PERS or a STIRS pension because they can't get Social Security from the city of San Diego. So I think that right now the pension system in the city is a mess, and we're going to need to solve that.
We needed to address the pension problem in San Diego, and it could have been addressed different ways. You could have worked with the unions, and we could have made people pay more into their pensions, but kept that stable entity in place. That would have been the best thing to do. We got the majority of the savings from the 5-year freeze, not from eliminated employee pensions. What it's done is it's made it impossible for the city of San Diego to retain people because we're the only ones in the region that do not have a pension. So people are coming here, they're getting training, and they're leaving in 3 years. And so we've created a revolving door of employees. So when people say nobody knows what they're doing in the city of San Diego, you're right. They're all leaving and they're going elsewhere as soon as they're trained. We should have and could have worked with the unions to stabilize the pension platform, brought stability to the middle class, but they not only removed the pension, we don't even have Social Security in the city of San Diego. So 401ks we've all seen are a dangerous thing.
What should the $12 million zoo tax be used for, and should it continue?
The zoo tax, the $12 million zoo tax, we need to look at that in the context of how much they're making and what they're using it for. And we have to look at Balboa Park and an enormous amount of infrastructure problems that are going on there. And so if we can move either for part-time some of that zoo tax and put it into the infrastructure, that's something that I would certainly support. The problem with not doing anything for your infrastructure right now while money's cheap to borrow is that that problem's growing. And now we have a $2 billion infrastructure problem. When interest rates go up, that is going to jump from 4 to 6. If you don't fix your roof, that might cost you $20,000 and the water's leaking into the walls, it's going to blow out the walls, it's going to rot the walls, and you're going to have a $100,000 problem. So that's what we're seeing in infrastructure. Kevin promised to fix it. It's one of the number one issues for citizens, and he's covering streets with a thin layer of asphalt and ignoring the real problems. He's taking the low-hanging fruit, and we're going to have a big problem when he goes to Sacramento.
Ms. Saldaña?
He won't be going to Sacramento, don't worry about that. We're going to make sure of that. So the zoo tax, the property tax, all of us who pay property taxes every year, you can look and see there's a line item that goes to the San Diego Zoo. It made sense when they were getting started back in the Depression 80 years ago, in the 20s and 30s, but they seem to be doing okay now. And so I would really look for a way to get some of the funds that are going into that zoo operations to extend it out and realize that they need to be good neighbors with other people in Balboa Park. They have a great operation there, they attract people from all over the world, but they are operating on public lands. And they do have some basic responsibility, like anyone does when you are using public lands for public benefit. So it's a tough one though, because it was approved by a vote of the people. So it would take a vote of the people to change that. And the zoo has tremendous high regard among people in San Diego. So I don't think we can count on them to help pay for some of our lack of infrastructure in other parts of the park at this point.
The city charter created the 5-member school board. Should it be expanded?
I think the County Board of Supervisors should be expanded first. There's how many millions of people in here with only 5 folks looking after them. I think a 5-member school board is a reasonable size, and again, it's not the number of people that serve on a board. We have 5 in the Community College District Board. We have 5 on the County Board of Supervisors. It's not so much a scale, it's how efficient are they managing a system, how effective are they managing their system, and I think the school board has taken a lot of unfair hits because they actually are a very progressive board. They actually are implementing a lot of good policies, and people are trying to figure out, well, what can we do to change this? Maybe we need to add more people so we get more shots at adding some diversity of views, which often means more conservative views. I think with things like education, we want to be as progressive as possible, because what's more progressive than educating people for the future? We want to be looking ahead, we want to be changing and adapting, and too often more conservative viewpoints are about maintaining the status quo. And education is really about expanding and moving beyond the status quo.
You know, opening up to more people gives you more ideas. The more people that look at issues and have control over those issues, the better the decisions are going to be. We have some tax hikes for the schools, and that some of the funding we're finding is not going to what the majority of the people that voted in that tax hike thought it was going to. And so we still have schools on hot days that have no air conditioning, and we still have asbestos that's not being removed. So there's some decision making that needs to be addressed, and that school board needs to make sure they're open with the public on what they're using the money for when they ask for more money. That's one of the biggest issues with taxes, is that people get frustrated when they agree to a tax and it's not fixing the problem that they said it was going to fix.
But how does your approach to problem solving differ from the status quo?
It differs because the status quo is he's not solving anything. That's the first thing. As a small business owner, as a Marine, as a lifeguard, if I took the approach to city government in my lifeguarding job, I would have a lot of people that wouldn't survive. And so the approach that Kevin has been one that we hear a lot, and it's incremental progress. And that catchphrase of incremental progress allows people to not make decisions that will maybe hurt their ability to go to another office. You have to go in there and you have to lead. And you have to be true to people and tell them what you need to do, that you're going to lead and you're going to listen to them, and at some point you're going to make a decision. But that is the only way to move things forward. And so incremental progress is great if you really don't want to get anything done. Business has decisive moves. They see the problem, like with the police department. They put money into it rather into the Chargers, rather into a bogus Balboa Park Centennial, and they fix the problem.
Well, I like to ask questions. I like to look for models that might apply to the situation that we're facing that isn't working. I like to ask people that are directly involved, what do you think? What makes sense? Do you have experience with having this problem before? That's not going to work when you're trying to save somebody in the pool, I understand that, or in the ocean. But for system solving at a city level, I think we need to do more listening to what the community is talking about. I won't do what Kevin Faulkner does, which is more PR, expand your PR department and add more people and take them out of other agencies. I won't do more polling or focus groups asking voters, what do you think we should say about my opponent that will change your mind about him or her. I won't throw more money at the problem like Kevin Faulkner does with the $1 million war chest. And I won't, ignore people when they come and say there's a problem and say, well, okay, well, we can't deal with that now because I'm waiting until the election is over. Since we have forced a campaign upon him, he has finally started negotiating with labor contracts. So I'll just have to end there because I'm trying to be within the time.
And the bells are ringing. What do you believe are the main differences between you and Mr. Harris?
Well, that I've served as an elected official. I've served for 6 years up in Sacramento. I haven't served in the Marine Corps, but I grew up with a Marine Corps dad who served 20 years in the U.S. Marine Corps. And Floyd, you knew my dad, and both of you guys were in Korea, And so I think that I haven't had a direct experience of serving in the military, but I grew up in a family with a career Marine father and was married to a combat veteran. So I think I have a perspective of military service that's different than a direct experience. And I have an experience of serving as an elected official for 6 years in Sacramento that really informs my understanding of the broader challenges that we are facing here in this region. And I think it also helps me see the solutions that are sometimes, again, not going to be found within the 12th floor of City Hall or the 10th floor of City Hall. So I think those are some of the main differences.
The difference is I'm not a politician. I'm a lifeguard, I'm a Marine, I'm a small business owner, I'm a dad, and I'm a normal Joe. I got put into the city council as an appointment, which means that I didn't owe anybody anything. And I got put in there, and I went in there, and I had a staff that was very neutral politically. And their whole focus was the problem and the solution. And so we went in there and we got more done in 9 months than people usually get done in a term in office. And so the difference is I will bring that to the mayor's office. I never thought for the life of me when I went through school or the Marine Corps or even 10 years ago that I would be up here or running for mayor or as a council member. So the difference is simply that. I'm frustrated like everybody else is with politics, and I'm frustrated with the machine, and I'm frustrated with those who are using this, Kevin, not my opponent, Kevin, who is using this to go somewhere else.
What is your salary at the community college and what do you teach?
I teach information technology. It's a technical vocational program. My latest salary, trying to think, because I just renegotiated our contract. So for teaching, and as I said, I have 30 years of experience with the district, so I earn right around $80,000 a year as a community college professor.
Thank you. Mr. Harris, were you a union representative and what were your job duties?
My job duties is I'm the chief steward, and I have done that since I couldn't get enough supplies or people on the beach since about 2009, but that's an unpaid position. I've never taken a dime for it. I've volunteered hundreds and hundreds of hours to try and improve our ability to do our job at the beach. My paid job is a lifeguard sergeant, and I do that 40 hours a week, and I enjoy it. I'm currently the sergeant on the rocks. I'm a dive team sergeant, and then I have a small business. So that's where I derive my living from, but the union job is an unpaid position.
San Diego has a growing income inequality and unaffordable housing. What would you do as mayor to address those issues?
Well, I've already taken action on that by supporting the minimum wage. We also have a living wage ordinance that needs to be enforced more so that our people that are working on city jobs and city facilities are making a living wage. I support PLAs, project labor agreements, so that the workers and the skilled workforce share in the profits of our buildings and ensure that our middle class continues to grow. That's the best way to support the middle class. It's the best way to grow jobs. But more importantly is you have to create jobs. You have to bond now. We have the money to do it and move projects forward again and get our infrastructure under control and put people to work. We have a lot of people that want to work. The city of San Diego, again, has 300 to 400 vacant positions. Kevin can't fill those. So how can we expect him to raise the economy if he can't fill the jobs that he's directly responsible for filling? The city mayor is a strong mayor form of government. He's in charge of filling those jobs and putting people to work. They're in the budget now.
So I would require that any new development doesn't simply pay an in lieu fee for and not build affordable housing, but that they incorporate affordable housing into their projects, that they also incorporate energy savings and water savings so that when people are paying a mortgage, they know that they're paying less for those utilities and resources going forward. I would make sure that Civic San Diego, which is now the de facto development agency for San Diego, pays contractors living wages for all their projects and agreements going forward. I think they're in violation of the law by not doing that now. I would make sure we have a community choice aggregation for energy so that we are generating local energy at a lower cost than SDG&E is charging us, which is often the highest rates in the country. And I'd look for establishing some free educational partnerships so every child who graduates from high school in San Diego has a chance to go to a college or a university and have funding to help offset many of their costs. They're doing that in Oakland, they're doing that in Long Beach, and I believe we can do it here in San Diego as partners as well.
Kind of following up on that, someone has asked, can San Diego and Tijuana cooperate on medical care and education?
Well, we definitely have medical tourism, is what it's called now. Many people cross the border to get affordable dental care in particular and other types of care. So we do have, as I mentioned before, a very large binational region where people are accessing affordable health care in Mexico, where the doctors are not charging exorbitant fees. When I lived in Baja California, I often went to get my medical care there because you don't have the same health care system. It is, prepare yourselves, it is a socialist country when it comes to healthcare in Mexico. And everyone has access to it at a very low or reasonable cost. So we already have that type of partnership. It's just not something that's formally done. And there's been efforts to try to get coverage of healthcare insurance for doctors in the border region. So, and the other part besides healthcare was?
It was affordable housing.
Affordable housing. Rosarito Beach and Tijuana are essentially our affordable neighborhoods now. We have many people that are living in Mexico because of the lower costs and crossing the border every day to come to work here in San Diego.
We shouldn't have to cross the border to get health care. We shouldn't have to cross the border for affordable housing. Most of you know that when I was a child, as many of you, we had one doctor we went to, we knew his name, he knew our family. They found a way to usurp the profits from that doctor and give them to insurance companies and billionaires so that those doctors now don't make the profits. Somebody else does that's not a medical professional. They find ways to usurp the money from the people that are doing the work. And we have to look at government as a whole and ask ourselves how we can be the most powerful nation in the world and not take care of our people. Because our strength is in people. And if we're not taking care of people, we're not going to be a strong country moving forward. So we have to go back to those basics. We have to go back to really looking at who's taking the money and that top 1%. And we got to look at it and say, this isn't working for us. This trickle-down economy is not working for us. Economics is not working. What I would ask is that you look at San Diego under the mayor and ask yourself, has things gotten better under Mayor Faulkner? Is your neighborhood better? Are your streets better? Are your response to police officers, car break-ins, are they better than what they were when he came on? Because I can tell you what I hear is it's not. And the statistics are that crime is rising. Violent crime is up. And so another 4 years with Mayor Faulkner, I think the vision that we see is that the Chargers will leave. Qualcomm might leave. The convention center will not get built. We will not bond for our infrastructure. So interest rates will rise and it'll go up. I'm someone that didn't think I would do this. But there's strong reason. 26 years with the city, I've never seen it run worse. On every level. There is no workable chain of command in the city right now. And you know that from your calls, you know that if you're trying to get something built, you know that if you're trying to just get out and enjoy the day. You can't get on your bike without getting a flat tire because of the road, you can't go down the street. You can't call and get a simple permit. And so the burden of this failure to run the city and the failure to manage the city, which is what it comes down to, is on the backs of people, and it's the people that we should be taking care of. Another 4 years with Kevin Faulkner, the city will really be in bad shape. And so we have to go in with somebody that's willing to make hard decisions, who's going to do it for the people, and he's going to look at neighborhoods, listen to people, and ask, what do you need? What needs to get done? And push it. And make sure that you're willing to go out and explain it and defend your issue, your ideas, defend your actions, and get ideas, meet with people. That's what we need. We got to move things forward, but we can't sit and be indecisive. And like we say, where's Kevin? Every decision in the city right now is where's Kevin? Where is he tonight? Why isn't he going to debates?
I'm not here to describe problems. I'm here to offer solutions and look at ways to solve them. And I have worked since I was 15 years old. So that's over 40 years that I have been employed as an educator, primarily as a coach for youth sports, as a teacher, as a researcher at UCSD. 6 years I served in the state assembly, but that is just a small piece of my collective experience, all in San Diego. So I've seen this city change and grow, and I forced better practices when it came to water quality and water conservation, working with the Sierra Club as an activist to force the city to put low-flow fixtures in every house that sells in San Diego. I forced the state to have energy efficiency in every commercial building. So when a commercial building is sold, you have to report how much energy is being used, and you can compare one energy efficient use to another, just like you do with an automobile or an appliance that you buy. I've taken very practical problem-solving approaches to some pretty broad issues, from resource conservation to violent crime with the open carry bill. One reason I'm wearing denim tonight is I'm tired of a city police department not testing 2,800 rape kits for women who went through a very invasive exam after they were assaulted, and those kits are sitting there and people are walking the streets and not even being investigated for committing a violent crime. So I'm a little bit angry that this mayor, who's not even willing to be here, which is why for the viewers at home, we have an empty suit over there representing him. I'm not going to give him the time of day because he can't solve problems. He's had plenty of time to try and he has failed. He is an incompetent leader for this city. It is my hometown and I am tired of watching him not even try to solve the big problems. I want to work on them the way I've worked on them for all of my life. And I credit my parents for telling me and my sisters, you can do anything when you put your mind to it. And I believe that I can become mayor of my hometown and I can make a positive difference. And I thank you for being here tonight to ask us those very good questions.
Thank you very much.